What's up, Internet? It's Matt at Overkill Woodcraft. And today's a pretty exciting day because I've got my first laser in my shop. This is from Algo, and it is their 5-watt DIY kit. Now, I have to be honest with you, I never thought I'd have a laser in my shop, and it's not because I have anything against lasers or CNCs or anything like that. Yes, I'm a pretty traditional craftsman style furniture maker, but when it comes to burning things, I've always just kind of enjoyed doing it by hand. But I think I've done, I don't know, like 150 of these logos for my one client in the past by hand, and some of them are huge in comparison to this. It gets a little fatiguing after a while, and it's just not very efficient or cost or time effective for me. And there's also been some instances in the past where no matter how good of a pyrographer I think I am, I just knew that doing it by hand wasn't going to look as good as having a laser engrave it for me, such as this box, for example, that I did for a dear friend several years ago. I ended up having to go over to a friend of mine who was a woodworker at the time, and he ended up engraving it for me. So I'm excited for the capabilities that this is going to offer my shop and what it'll bring. So as I mentioned, this is their 5-watt laser, but you do have the option to upgrade the laser to a 10-watt. But since I have zero experience with lasers, essentially, I figured I'd just start from there and let this do what most initial tools do for me, and that's open Pandora's box that sends me diving down a rabbit hole. And then I upgrade and I upgrade and upgrade, and before you know it, I'll probably have a laser that's like a 50 by 50 foot laser taking up my entire shop and backyard or whatever. So we'll see. That just kind of tends to be how I am. But I do know that I don't have a ton of space in my shop right now, and this one has about a 400 by 400 millimeter surface area, and that's kind of what I liked about it, is that I don't have a ton of space, and I knew this wasn't going to require like its own little station. I have this shelf or wasteboard, whatever you want to call it, that I made for it, and it just tucks right into my workbench. So it's nice. I can keep it out of the way. I don't plan on becoming like a full-time laser engraving business or anything like that. So, it'll be nice to just keep it out of the way when I'm done using it. Now, Algo did reach out a few weeks ago and, asked if I wanted to do a video in return for this. And that's totally fine with me. There was a need in my shop. And if you're familiar with any of my work in the past, you'll know that sponsorships and partnerships and receiving free products and all of that has never stopped me from giving my unbiased opinion about something. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today. But because again, I don't have a ton of, laser experience here, I'm not really going to get into like how to do projects or anything with this yet, because that would just be ridiculous having someone with no experience trying to teach that. Instead, what I'm going to do is a real quick unboxing and assembly process. And following that, I'll show you Algo. This comes with an app that they have. I'll go over the app just a little bit and show you some of the features it offers. And then I'll show you how I went about burning one of my logos. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and stick around and we'll get to it. So right on top, you've got a couple of smaller boxes, and in those boxes, they've got some consumables such as these little aluminum business cards that you can practice on, piece of acrylic, paintbrush, probably for, dusting off the little tight areas, and then some cable ties, which I've seen are used for obviously keeping the cable in place once you've got it all assembled. In the next box, you've got essentially all the manuals, certificates of conformity, and some more consumables such as this little piece of 3mm plywood, which to my understanding is the maximum width that this laser can actually cut through. So it's nice that they send you some things to go ahead and get started with. And then in here is obviously the machine itself and everything that's needed to assemble it. So we're going to go ahead and take it out of the box, and I'll just kind of cover everything that it comes with and make sure nothing's missing. All right, so I've gotten everything out of the box, and as you can see, there really isn't a whole lot to it. So it should be a pretty straightforward assembly process, which we're going to go ahead and dive right into. And the first step of that is to go ahead and assemble the frame. First up is the right Y-axis, which has the limit screw right there. That's going to go there. So starting with the rails, you'll want the more narrow ones in the front and the back. And with these metric numbers and measurements here, you'll want that facing you. And then on your longer rails, you have these two little stops here, and you'll want those facing outside. So we're going to go ahead and inset these, and we're going to take our 5mm by 25 screws put them through the ends, and go ahead and attach the frame together. When I'm doing this, I'm not cranking any of this down like really hard or anything like that. I'm just making sure everything's getting in here nice and snug. So then I can make sure that everything is good and square, because there are other parts that you have to install here coming up next, such as these little L brackets and everything. So next up is the gantry, and you just want to make sure your motor is at the back. It's going to lift up my rails. So now that the gantry is on there and things are rolling pretty smooth, put it about the halfway point. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip it over. And then next up is to install these L brackets on each corner here using the 14 mil screws. So I'm going to do that on all four corners. And again, I'm just leaving things snug for now until I get all four of them on, and then I'll tighten everything down. Now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and just put my 4 feet on, and I'll do that on these L brackets with the holes that are on the longer sides. So now that the feet are on, I flip it back over, and I'm going to go ahead and install these L brackets on all 4 ends and make sure that they're oriented this way. And we're using those M14 screws again, and we're only using one right now, all right, to hold it in here. There's a threaded hole right in there. So next up is the belts, which we're going to do on each side. And to do that, I'm going to make sure my little ridges, my serrations, are facing down. I'm going to feed that through. Then I'm going to go under my first wheel. This is where it can probably be a little tricky, is I'm going to fish this out through here and go over my middle wheel. And to do that, I'm just going to use a little screwdriver here. Well, I'm sure you could probably use one of the Allen keys they include. So I've got that. Go over, give myself some slack here. Fish this down. Just use my screwdriver again to kind of help me push that through. Just get it started. And there we go. Now I'm going to continue feeding this. I'll just wheel that along. I'm just going to fish this through to where I have a little bit hanging out here. So I've fed it to my other end, and I've got these little just kind of tabs sticking out back here, a little bit of excess slack, all right? Now that that's done, we're taking these little M8 screws, putting a washer on them, and we're going to keep the belt in place using these. So I'm going to flip my belt up here. I'm going to thread this, and this is what's going to keep your belt in place. I don't want this like so snug on here to where I'm going to potentially cut this, so I'm just going to keep it tight enough. And I'll pull the slack out of this belt, and I'll do the same on the other end, and I'll just do that on all 4 corners. So next we're going to install this plate for the limit switch. You've got 4 holes here. They're going to go on the 2 that would be closest to you. And then you've got these 4 very tiny screws. All right, we're going to use the shorter ones for this. These are small, therefore they're not going to be super strong, so we're not going to torque these down too much. Then we're going to take our limit switch, we're going to put it on here, align it with those other holes on top of that plate, and use the longer screws. Now I'm just going to make sure this properly engages. Seems like the action's pretty smooth there, so we'll move on to the next step. So next is to install the laser module itself, which is pretty straightforward. Just sliding that in, then using one of these screws to go ahead and secure it in place. This is also how you can raise and lower the laser. So next up is going to be installing the control box, and that's going to go, there's two slots right here. All right, and it will just line up right there. So I mean, it's pretty foolproof. Now, I had a separate bag come with mine that said to make sure you use these shorter M14 or M5 by 14 screws instead of these longer ones that you get in, the assembly with all the other contents, because these could potentially damage this box. So I don't know, keep those lying around for extra or something, and just make sure you use these shorter ones. So I'm gonna go ahead and line up my control box in those two little slots that I mentioned that are in the front rail. Again, I don't really see the point in torquing this down. I'm just gonna make it snug. That feels pretty good to me. So now I am going to connect these cables, and I am no electrician by any means, but this is really straightforward. I'm just going to run this wire harness through here. I'm going to try to keep it as straight as possible. Then you've got these two. They're going to connect here. I'm going to bring my gantry over. The same thing here. Plug that in first. I'll plug in these two to the switch up here. Not gonna lie, that is a little snug getting it in there. I'm not sure why. One of them went on just fine. The other one I'm having some issues with. There we go. Just needed the assistance of some pliers. I'd try to do that gently though. Then these last two. Just run that through there for some added security. Now I'm just going to get some of these cables under control. I'm going to go ahead and move my gantry all the way back. That way I know I have enough slack everywhere I need. Kind of loosely put these all in place where they need to go. And last but not least, all right, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. Feel pretty good about that. And then I'll install the Wi-Fi antenna. Just clip off the excess. I need some new clippers. All right, there's that antenna. So now it's time to go ahead and hook up this power. For that, they give you a power brick and the cord that plugs into it. But unfortunately, mine's meant for, I don't know, everywhere but the United States. So yeah, I'm definitely a little disappointed in this because I was looking forward to using this today, but that's clearly not going to happen because I either need to get a converter or find out if they just sent me the wrong cable or what. So I'm going to stop for now and figure out what's going on with this because I literally just discovered this. So all right, so it's a day later and I'm back. I spoke with Algo and they're going to send me the proper cord that comes with the 3-prong. Stuff like this happens. So at least, it was cleared up and ideally it shouldn't happen to anyone else in the future. But in the meantime, I just went ahead and ordered a little adapter, converter, whatever you want to call it, off of Amazon. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. And while I was waiting, I went ahead and made this shelf that I covered during the intro. So without further ado, I'm going to plug this in, power it on, and we'll see what happens. Put my key in, flip it to the on position, release this emergency stop, and push and hold the power button. Both lights are green, should be going home. There it is. So now that it's all set up, I've gone ahead and downloaded the app, so I'm going to connect it and run some tests. So I've been playing around with this laser for a few days now, and this was my first test attempt that I did using their app. And then I went ahead and moved on to the second test. And then I was really just kind of chomping at the bit to go ahead and try burning my logo. So this was my first attempt here. See, I mean, definitely not perfect, and that was my second attempt. And then some of these background ones are from, I ended up going into Lightburn and I had some issues in Lightburn because I had set it to inches per minute or inches per second in there with the speed, the unit for the speed. And it definitely needs to be set in millimeters because I was really just messing this up. And then I finally figured it out. And when I was in Lightburn, I went ahead and just this was like I think my second or third attempt here. Just did like a keychain to try to utilize some of the features in there. But the third attempt actually turned out really well. So we'll go ahead and I'll run through the app and I'll show you how I burned my logo for the third time. So when you open up this app for the first time, it's a pretty easy process getting everything connected. It'll just run you through a couple prompts and then you'll go ahead and connect the device to your Wi-Fi. Now, I won't lie, I did have a couple issues connecting it to my Wi-Fi. It took me about 6 tries, and I think that's because in this app, and this is feedback that I'll leave for them, when you connect typically any device to your Wi-Fi or your modem, it'll give you the option like a drop down to choose your modem. And I had to type mine in manually, and I think there was a space that I was leaving out or that I needed to put in, and that's what was causing the holdup. But I got it connected on like the fifth or sixth try, so it really wasn't a big deal. Now I'm in pro mode right now, and really the only difference between pro and the simple mode is that these cards, list and control, library, album, etc., they're laid out like this. Versus in simple mode, they're laid out like this. So we'll go ahead and start off with the carving area of here. You can check in this library, it just mentions that these are really only for personal use, not for business. A couple kind of pre-designed cutouts here or engravings that, there are to choose from. Album is where you can go in and actually, choose from what you have stored in your phone. Text, you can type whatever you want in here, obviously. And they've got some different fonts to choose from. I do wish there were a few more fonts to choose from if I had to critique anything in here. But, a couple of different editing options for the text. History, obviously, show you what you've done already. A few different types of like puzzles that you can mess with. So, I mean, it's cool. I think this app is very good for beginners. You can hop right into it and basically start engraving something like right away. It's definitely not going to compare to Lightburn, I guess, because Lightburn has a lot more capabilities. But Lightburn, and this is just based off my limited experience here, is a lot more complicated, and there's way more to learn with Lightburn. So I was able to get in here and just start burning right away, and it was really nice, because I do have quite a bit of experience with different types of software, SketchUp and other things just in the past, but still learning a new software, it can be overwhelming, especially when you're a perfectionist. You don't want to waste a ton of material with test burns and everything like that. So I do like that about this software, or this app I should say, is that you can just hop right in and start burning. So we'll go ahead and I'll just show you my logo that I was able to kind of get hammered out and nailed down to somewhat of a, I would consider it a good result. So we'll go into the history, click that, or if we're doing this for the first time, I would just go into album and then, choose it from there. But back into the history, I went ahead and I saved this as my logo base. So once you have the image in there, you can obviously mess with all the different kind of photo filter or adjustment options here, brightness, contrast. Then once you've got that to where you like it, they even have some filters you can add on here, which are all pretty cool, honestly. You can crop the photo. Obviously, I don't need to do that. But then once you have that to where you want it, just hit next. And then you're going to choose the size and position of where you want it on your grid. You can scale it up, scale it down. You can also go in and just adjust that manually. Then you can also adjust the image a little bit more in here, brightness, etc. I'm going to get out of there because I don't want to accidentally save that. So now that we've got this set to where we want it, we'll go over to configure, and then you've got just a ton of different options here. I'll pick the highest quality here, the orientation of it, horizontal. You can mess with the speed, how many passes you want, decide whether you're contouring, filling, this, scanning, dot matrix. I mean, a good bit of options in here. So we also have the laser power to choose from in here. All right, so now that we have all this set, we'll hit start. We'll transfer that, upload. Then it brings it to this screen. I'll hit run. Obviously, make sure you put your safety glasses on, and then you're good to go. All right, we'll go ahead and pop this out and take a look. Just had some tape on here because, this thinner 3mm plywood tends to bow and cup a little bit, so, which is understandable considering it made a trip across the ocean. So go ahead and take a look at this. Just end up cleaning that up a little bit with rubbing alcohol. But for what ended up being essentially my third attempt at trying to burn my logo, I'd say it's not bad, especially considering I'm just using the app. So pretty happy with these results. So there you have it, Algo DIY laser kit. I think if you're a beginner like me, or if you've got a ton of experience with lasers and you're just wanting to add another one to your shop, this is a great way to go. Especially they've got the ability to upgrade this again to the 10-watt laser, and even if you're wanting something more powerful, I think their flagship model is a 22-watt. So everyone that I've interacted with and who owns one of these, and all the reviews and everything I've seen on it, it's all positive. So I'll gladly go ahead and put my name on this. There's an affiliate link for me down below in the description if that's something you're interested in doing. I think this was like $300 brand new, so I really don't see how you could go wrong with this. And, like I said, their customer support was really responsive with me. And, I have good feedback on that as well. Now, as I gain more experience with this and the app and other programs like, Lightburn, I will definitely go ahead and post some of the projects I've been doing and offer any insights I can on it. In the meantime, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. And I'll see you next time. Take it easy.